Oh, hi. I'm Gareth Webster, the editor of Crime Fiction Lover, and welcome to our channel, Video Evidence. I'm just finishing Tim Sullivan's latest DS Cross novel, The Tailor, and I've been enjoying it so much that I put in a call to Tim's publicist to see if he'd be willing to read from it for our viewers here on Video Evidence. Signor, he says si. So it's with great pleasure that I can introduce Tim to you now. He's going to read the very first chapter of the book. It's the setup to a fiendish mystery that George and his colleagues at the Major Crimes Unit in the Avon and Somerset Constabulary must solve. The Tailor is the 8th novel in the series featuring D.S. George Cross, which began with The Dentist. The series has sold over 1 million copies and, irrespective of the numbers, has made Tim one of our favourite UK crime authors here at Crime Fiction Lover. Without further ado, let's send it over to him now.
Hello, my name is Tim Sullivan. I'm going to read you an extract from my new book, The Tailor, out on July the 16th. So this is Chapter 1, The Tailor, by me. The man in seat C24 on the 10 a.m. Bristol Temple Meads to London Paddington train service was studying the young girl sitting across the aisle from him with her mother. The 5-year-old was engrossed, eyes unfeasibly wide open like a tiny Pixar character, her breath steaming up the glass as she watched 2 raindrops racing each other in diagonal rivulets across the carriage window. He wondered whether she had placed a silent bet with herself as to which would get to the other side first. She should have done. What would be the point otherwise? It was a gloomy grey September day. A blanket of cloud above so thick it looked like a ruffled duvet, but instead of offering warmth and comfort, it promised just persistent rain. But at least everyone on the train was on their way to wherever they were heading, dry and warm. For a time, that was. 7 minutes, to be precise. This was when the train pulled up sharply to a shuddering halt. The man in C24 looked down at the River Avon, which ran alongside this section of track some yards below. A 4 was rowing, followed by a coach and a small motorboat barking instructions through a megaphone. It was a further 5 minutes when the early morning rowers were well out of sight that a collective unease ran through the carriages of the GWR train. This was no normal delay. We were just being held at a red light. It shouldn't be too long till we were on our way again, said the guard over the train tannoy. For most of the passengers, this announcement sounded perfectly routine, all except for the man in carriage C, seat 24. He knew it had nothing to do with a red light. That wasn't the reason for the delay. He could hear the alarm, the sense of shock, a desperate attempt to keep it together in the guard's voice. After a further 15 minutes, it was clear to everyone that something was very wrong indeed. Passengers started to fret about being late for appointments, the possibility of missing flights from Heathrow. Phone calls were made, texts sent. People wanted to feel they were actually doing something in this hopeless situation, to make them feel less impotent. The train then began to move, but very slowly. Ladies and gentlemen, due to an incident on the train, this service will terminate at the next stop. We request that all passengers remain seated when we reach Bath Spa. C24 was annoyed. He should have timed it better, but he'd had no choice. He'd had to act when the opportunity presented itself. Too late now. As the train pulled into the station, with the city's Georgian buildings and light Bath stone rising from it, the first thing that was immediately noticeable was a number of British Transport Police on the platform. Will all passengers please remain in their seats? To repeat, there's been an incident on the train. Police will be asking for contact details of all passengers and possibly statements from those situated in carriage J. This train will terminate here. All tickets will be valid for the next scheduled train for Paddington departing in 25 minutes. There was a collective sigh in the carriage. Predictably, some people got up to gather their things, ready to leave the train, as if the announcement to stay seated had no bearing on them. Like passengers on a plane crowding the aisle immediately after the seatbelt sign has been extinguished after landing, in the absurd belief that it would enable them to disembark significantly quicker. After he had given the police false contact details, C24 left the carriage carrying 2 items of luggage, only one of which was his. The other belonged to the man he had killed in the toilet of carriage J.
That was wonderful. A big thank you to Tim for taking the time to do that. Those first few pages are so important to folks like us who like to try and solve the crime alongside the detectives in a book. And I think there may be a couple of sizzling clues in there for you to hang on to. As you read, you can see if George will pick up on them too. One of the main reasons this character is so popular is that he's unlike many of the other detectives you read about. He doesn't have a relationship problem or any addictions. He's not haunted by his past or by a case he failed to solve long ago. In fact, I'm not sure he's ever failed to solve a case anyhow. His sense of justice never makes him impetuous, he's not a risk taker, and gut instinct is something that completely fails to register. What makes George different is that he's neurodivergent. I'm not sure any diagnosis is given in the books, but he seems to have an autistic spectrum disorder. In a lot of ways, it's his superpower. He looks at every case very logically, he's very thorough, and he sees things from a different angle. And he's studious. The victim in the Tailor is a tailor, obviously, and so one step George takes early on in the novel is to learn all he can about bespoke tailoring. Now, that's the kind of diligence that good detective work requires. But George is so good, it sometimes riles his colleagues. And interactions with his colleagues is where he struggles. Social situations aren't his forte, so when it comes to things like informing the relatives, for example, he needs help. In past novels, he's relied on his partner D.I. Otti for that kind of support. But in The Tailor, a major challenge is on the horizon beyond the sheer lack of leads. Otti has been promoted, and George may be getting a new partner. Now, changes in routine are very troubling to George, but at least there's a difficult case he can throw himself into. As Tim mentioned, The Tailor comes out on Thursday the 16th of July 2026, and there's a link you can follow in the description with this video. Watch for our review coming soon on Crime Fiction Lover. And if you've watched this far, a big thank you for doing so. And if you've enjoyed the video, please leave a like or subscribe. It'll really help us out here on Video Evidence. Bye for now, and we'll see you in the next one.